You will hear about the African Union. Yes, it exists. But what is the effect of the African Union in reality? We cannot talk about integration in the theme and not talk about the African Union. Because it is this organization that should unite us, create real integration. But we regret to see these wars that persist on the African continent, killing millions of young people. And that this organization, which has heads of state, with armies, is unable to organize itself to support certain countries. The Union is not just a word. The Union is a symbol. And we, the youth, should learn a lesson from this situation to unite, to make integration a reality. I was unpleasantly surprised when Ethiopia, which hosts the headquarters of the African Union, was experiencing a conflict. And when I saw the Prime Minister put on a military uniform and announce the closure of the university in Addis Ababa to face the threat. I did not see any action from the African Union to protect these headquarters. Most Western states saw Addis Ababa falling, packing up, and leaving. Ethiopia fought, found an internal solution, and is living more or less in peace today. The children of Congo have been dying for years. Several other conflicts, such as in Sudan, exist on the continent. We would have liked to see the African Union generate the forces and all the necessary strategies to support these states so they can regain peace. For nearly 10 years, the Sahel has been the theater of international terrorism. But we see no support from these organizations to find a solution to this problem. Worse, a few days ago, a country foreign to Africa openly announced having supported and participated in a cowardly terrorist and barbaric attack against the forces of our confederation in Tinsawatan. The African Union did not utter a word to condemn this interference by a state outside of Africa in the internal affairs of our states. I would like them to hear this and therefore break their silence and take action so that the youth can believe in the African Union.
Ibrahim Traore comes here and tells us that AU is not doing the work that it's supposed to be doing. And maybe some of you may not agree with what he is saying, but personally, I will agree 100% with what Ibrahim Traore says, with the sentiments of Ibrahim Traore, that AU isn't working. You know, let me tell you something. Many people don't know the responsibilities of the AU or the mandate, what the AU is supposed to be doing, the assignment of the AU. AU is a very great and big organization. It's a big body that is standing for 55 countries of Africa, and therefore it is supposed to be doing a lot of things. I'll just let you know. I'll play for you a clip. You listen to it very well. Just listen to what it is saying. Listen to the responsibilities of the African Union in Africa. And then after listening to it, I want you to tell me on the comment section, amongst the things that you will hear, amongst all the things you are going to listen to, do you think, and have you ever seen the African Union doing even a single one of them? Have you ever come across? Because personally, I only hear from the African Union when it's only the time of electing leaders. The time African Union wants to elect the chairman of the African Union is when I listen, or is when I hear about African Union. From there, I don't hear about African Union again. Like recently we had elections and Mahmoud was chosen as a new chairman of the African Union. But since that time, I have never listened. I have never heard anything from him. I have never heard anything from African Union. So African Union has great responsibilities, but African Union is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And that is why Africa is still stuck. Because a lot of things are happening in Africa that many people don't get. we are still under colonization, while African Union should be the organization and the board that should be standing and preventing this colonization and making sure that this colonization in Africa does not continue. But African Union itself, it is colonized. Listen to this video, and then we shall come back and talk about it later. The African Union, AU, is a continental body consisting of the 55 member states that make up the country of the African continent. It was officially launched in the year 2002 as a successor to the Organization of African Unity, OAU, 1963 to 1999. This is the history of African Union. In May 1963, 32 heads of independent African states met in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to sign the charter creating Africa's first post-independence continental institution, the Organization of the African Unity, OAU. The OAU was the manifestation of the Pan-African vision for an African that was united, free, in control of its own destiny, and this was solemnized in the OAU Charter, in which the founding fathers recognized that freedom, equality, justice, and dignity were essential objectives for the achievement of the legitimate aspirations of the African peoples, and that there was a need to promote understanding among Africa's people and foster cooperation aspirations of Africans for brotherhood and solidarity in a larger unity transcending ethnic and national differences. The guiding philosophy was that the Pan-Africanism, which centered on Africa's civilizations and promoted Africa unity, the communal characteristics and practices of African communities, and a drive to embrace Africa's cultures and common heritage. The first OAU summit said the main objectives of the OAU were to rid the continent of the remaining vestiges of colonization and apartheid, to promote unity and solidarity among its African states, to coordinate and intensify cooperations for development, to safeguard the sovereignty and territorial integrity and member states, and to promote international cooperation. The OAU Charter spelled out the purpose of the organization, namely, to promote the unity and solidarity of the African states. Number 2, to coordinate and intensify their cooperation and efforts to achieve a better life for the peoples of Africa. Number 3, to defend their sovereignty, their territorial integrity and independence. Number 4, to coordinate all forms of colonization from Africa. And number 5, to promote international cooperation, having due regard to Charter of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Through the OAU Coordinating Committee for the Liberation of Africa, the continent worked and spoke as one with undivided determination in forging an international consensus in support of the liberation struggle and the fight against apartheid. The OAU had provided an effective forum that enabled all member states to adopt coordinated positions on matters of common concern to the continent in international fora and defend the interests of Africa effectively. On 9.1999, the heads of state and the government of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, issued the site declaration calling for the establishment of an African Union with a view to accelerating the process of integration in the continent to enable Africa to play its rightful role in the global economy while addressing multifaceted social, economic, and political problems compounded, and they were by certain negative aspects of globalization. The launch of the African Union AU, was officially launched in July 2002 in Durban, South Africa, following a decision in September 1999 by its predecessor, the OAU, to create a new continental organization to build on its work The decision to relaunch African's Pan-African Organization was the outcome of the consensus by African leaders that in order to realize Africa potential, there was a need to refocus attention from the fight for decolonization and ridding the continent of apartheid, which had been the focus of OAU, towards increased cooperation and integration of African states to drive Africa growth and economic development. The OAU is guided by its vision of an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the global arena. The Constitutive Act of the African Union and the Protocol on amendments to the Constitutive Act of the African Union lay out the aims that the AU which are achieve greater unity and solidarity between African countries and their people. That is number one. Number two, it should defend the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and independence of its member states. Number three, it should accelerate the political and socio-economic integration of the continent. Number four, it should promote and defend African common position on issues of interest to the continent and its peoples. Number five, it should encourage international cooperation. Number six, it should promote peace, security, and stability on the continent. Number seven, it should promote democratic principles and institutions, popular participation, and good governance. Number eight, it should promote and protect human and people's rights in accordance with the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and other relevant human rights instruments. Number nine, it should establish the necessary conditions which enable the continent to play its rightful role in the global economy and international negotiations. Number nine, it should promote sustainable development at the economic, social, and cultural levels, as well as the integration of African economies. Number 10, it should promote cooperations in all fields of human activity to raise the living standards of African people. Number 11, it should coordinate and harmonize the policies between the existing and the future regional economic communities for the gradual attainment of the objectives of the Union. Number 12, it should advance the development of the continent by promoting research in all fields, in particular in science and technology. Number 12, it should work with relevant international partners in the eradication of the preventable disease and the promotion of good health on the continent. Number 13, it should ensure the effective participation of women in decision making, particularly in the political, economic, and socio-cultural areas. Number 14, it should develop and promote common policies on trade, defense, and foreign relations to ensure the defense of the continent and the strengthening of its negotiating positions. And number 15, it should invite and encourage the full participation of the African diaspora as an important part of our continent in the building of the African Union. The work of the AU is implemented through several principles, decisions-making organs: the Assembly of Heads of State and Government, the Executive Council, the Permanent Representatives Committee (PRC), the Specialized Technical Committee (STCs), the Peace and Security Council, and the African Union Commission. The AU structure promotes participation of African citizens and civil society through the Pan-African Parliament and the Economic, Social, and Cultural Council. Organs that handle judicial and legal matters as well as human rights issues include African Commission on Human and People's Rights, African Court on Human and People's Law, on People's Rights, AU Commission on International Law, AU Advisory Board on Corruption, and the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. The AU is also working towards should also work towards the establishment of continental financial institutions: the African Central Bank, the African Investment Bank, and the African Monetary Fund. The regional economic committees and the African peer review mechanism are also the key bodies that should constitute the structure of the African Union to ensure the realization of its objective and the attainment of the Pan-African vision of an integrated, prosperous and peaceful Africa. Agenda 2063 was developed as a strategic framework for Africa's long-term socio-economic and integrative transformation. Agenda 2063 calls for greater collaboration and support for all the things that are happening in Africa today. African Union should be helping. Talk about like recently we had the French president in Algeria, and just after he came to Algeria, the drones of Mali were they were bombed. Okay, and you may not know what these people are planning, but African Union is here. African Union cannot even talk about these issues. They cannot address these issues, and there is nobody else, there is no any organizations that needs to come to stand and start addressing these issues. It's the responsibility of African Union to make sure Africans and all African countries are united. It is the responsibilities of the African Union to make sure that Africa economy is rising. We are doing business across Africa freely, opening boundaries and all that, free movement from African countries doing business and all that. But I think African Union, it is also manipulated to an extent. It cannot address these issues. It can't talk about these issues. Why? Because the West and the imperialists have come in. They've interfered with the African Union, and therefore everything that African Union should be doing is not doing, because even themselves, they've been pocketed. They're not addressing the issue they're supposed to be addressing. The war that is in Congo, look at what is happening in Sudan. These are the things that I think they should have been solved, or rather African Union should have found a solution for all these things. Okay, the disunity that is in Africa should not be there. And I think as much as we are condemning the puppets and the heads of state that we have, these people also, even African Union itself as an organization, is, I think it's just a puppet itself. It's a sellout, and that is why you find out that a lot of things are happening in Africa, but African Union cannot stand up to defend, cannot stand up to find or to give solutions to the problems that are happening in Africa. I want to urge every head of state to try and make sure Africans and Africa as a continent is not going to die, and African people are not going to suffer because of what is happening in Africa. Can we just turn around and decide to do what is right? That is what I'm asking, and that is what I'm urging. What do you think about this issue? What do you think about this video? Tell me in the comment section what do you think. I'll do my best to make sure I read all the comments and give a response where possible. I am the African Streamline. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being here all the times and all the moments. I love you guys so much. You are my great people. My black brothers from Caribbean, from diaspora, and from Africa in particular, I salute you so very much. As I tell you every day, Africa is home, and anything that concerns Africa concerns me and you as Africans. My black brothers, anything that concerns black people concerns me and you as black people. Adios, muchachos. Peace.